Hello, Kuo-Hung. It's nice to see you here in our online discussion, informal discussion, and I would say good day, good morning, or good afternoon, because in Taiwan this is different time. We have some hours difference, 6, 5 hours, right? Possible 5 hours difference, but never mind. In Lithuania it's 10 a.m. Approximately morning, middle of the morning, and in Taiwan it's afternoon after lunch. It's a good time, good time to discuss, and for me after breakfast, it's also a good time to have our discussion. And I want to shortly introduce you for our channel viewers, and also for all other viewers who possible will see this video. Professor Kuo-Hung Huang is professor, and not only professor, at least it's written also officially distinguished professor. And possible you will explain what is the meaning of distinguished professor at National Chiayi University in Taiwan. And his research interests are quite wide. For example, he's involved in distance learning, distance education, online education, obviously e-learning in general, because I just want also to remind that Professor was previously chairman of the Department of E-Learning Design and Management at the mentioned university, and he also for years participates in Taiwan e-learning and digital archives program for promoting the digital literacy, digital library resources in schools, etc., etc., etc. It's not possible to mention everything, and it is nice that we know each other already also for a relatively long time, and I had some opportunities to visit Taiwan and vice versa. Professor Kuo-Hung also visited Lithuania many times, and we have quite good and fruitful cooperation in this regard, and it's really, really nice. And I would like to invite Professor to introduce himself shortly, maybe to add something additional to his profile, despite that I mentioned something important, but anyway, it would be nice to hear from you something.
Okay, thank you.
Please, shortly about yourself, about your current position at university, about your work.
Okay, so can I do I use my share my PowerPoint or share some?
No, just now a few words, and we will discuss possible later, and it's maybe you will share some also additional information.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Kuo-Hung Huang. I'm a professor in Chiayi University, and my specialty is about e-learning, which is quite important in this pandemic time. But I consider this is a bad influence to e-learning, because we work so hard to promote the idea that e-learning is not just a teaching with camera. We have to design many interactive videos online, and some online discussion, some animation, some interactive testing. So there are so many online teaching strategies and resources we can use. But now, because the pandemic it seems everyone consider e-learning or online learning is just put a camera, then this is e-learning. So they're doing our efforts to try to change the idea of e-learning.
You see that we immediately turned to this discussion to online about online learning, about online studies, and it's quite understandable because this is current situation or so recent practice, recent perspective, because starting from 2020. This pandemic, COVID pandemic started, and it was needed, it was obligatory immediately to turn to, let's say, another mode of teaching, learning, etc. And now this is quite sensitive issue. But as you mentioned, I do agree that it's just to put camera and to use some apps like Microsoft Teams or WebEx or every other platform is not the essence of e-learning, or it's not the essence of online learning. It just maybe one mode, let's say,
Yes.
emergency mode that it was needed to move as fast as possible, and possible somehow this is raises some negative aspects in this regard. What do you think?
But it's because it is pandemic. The pandemic comes so quickly. So yeah, people they don't have any other solutions. They just can use this kind of we call it video conference platform. Yeah, but because it's a sudden disaster. So yeah, I don't blame anyone because this is an emergency.
Okay, possibly we will return a little bit later to this discussion, because you anyway are good professional in this area, and you can compare, for example, pre-pandemic time, what is related with online education in general, and for example during pandemic time, possible some serious essential differences or problems, etc. We will maybe discuss later. Let's return back, and it would be really nice to know a few words or or a little bit detailed picture about your university, about your national Chiayi University, which I visited many times. But anyway, it would be nice to hear from you.
Okay, can I show a PowerPoint?
Yeah. It's possible, but please keep in mind.
I can show a map.
Discussing question by question, and if you want to add something to visualize about university, why not? It would be nice.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Yeah, it's good. It's visible.
Let's see. Okay. Okay, then this is, you can see this. Okay.
Yeah, it's good. It's visible.
Okay. This is Taiwan. Then the map. Then we are in the southern Taiwan. So this year is the 104th anniversary of this university. Actually, during the Japanese occupation time, so we have there's a high school or agricultural high school. Then later we have some teachers college. So we combine Chiayi University at 2000. Then we have 4 campuses, and we have about 13,000 students. Then we have many foreign students. The policies we are going to recruit more foreign students and foreign faculties. Okay, and this is my department from e-learning design. So we have some curriculum on education and media design and computer skills and management. So we have some kind of project with the schools. Then we have get funding from the Ministry of Education. Okay, uh, so that okay.
Oh, thank
That's
you.
about my university. Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting. In my opinion, it's really a good university. Despite, for example, that I have read on in some papers, recent papers published in international journals, etc., about some challenges related with higher education in your country. But anyway, it's really good university. At least it's my opinion. And what is again? Let's follow our plan. What is the education system in Taiwan today? Again, in general, and it would be nice to briefly describe it because it's despite I usually saying despite similarities or common issues in many countries, because anyway it's related to students' age, for example, or to learners' age in general. These systems in every country generally have some similarities, something common. But on the other hand, having in mind different context, culture, political, geographical, etc. Some differences possible exist. Can you shortly introduce your education system in whole?
Okay. The education system in Taiwan is similar to United States education system. So, because in the early times, Taiwan was financially supported by United States. So the educational system was influenced by the United States. So we have six years of elementary school. Then we have 3 years of middle school. Then we have 3 or call it junior high school. And we have another 3 years of senior high school. Okay, then after the high school, then student will go to the 4 year colleges. So that after 4 years, they have a bachelor degree, then they can have 2 years graduate school for master degree, then continue to the PhD program.
Mm-hmm. And remember, we also discussed in person, for example, many times, and that despite that Taiwan and Lithuania, both countries somehow are small countries. Despite that Lithuania is twice bigger according territory, but it's not the case in population, having in mind inhabitants. But never mind, we have many things in common, historical things in common. For example, as far as I know, as you mentioned now, that Taiwan education system and possible not education system is heavily oriented to United States, or based on this example, or taking into practice or introducing into practice some practice, some experience, some models from United States or in general from American educational system. But for example, historically, before Second World War, Taiwan was under Japanese rule, under Japanese control, I would say, for example, for approximately 50 years, starting from 1895 to 1945. And at that time, not the whole period, but for example, before Second World War, it was in Lithuania, it was first the first Republic of Lithuania from 1918, and it was good time for developing, for growing of our country, but it was interrupted by Second World War, by occupation, etc. Can you shortly explain, because in this regard, Taiwan also has different influence, for example, from Japanese to United States. It's so large interval.
Yeah, that's true, but there's still some influence from Japan. Basically, for elementary school education, we have some kind of training or some kind of school classroom management similar to Japan, but we have some influence from China, okay, and then from United States. So it makes the culture are quite different. But nowadays, because in Taiwan are happy to accept new culture or any change, that we are so flexible and we are keen to change. So later on we have created some kind of we have some our own unique culture, but at the same time we have some kind of unique problems in Taiwan. So but we continue to change to improve our education quality.
Yeah, of course, but generally, for example, at least from our perspective, we have quite positive opinion and positive experience that Taiwanese education system is in high quality and students receiving good education, good quality of education, etc. But anyway, in each country, despite some general, let's say, panorama, faces certain challenges, as you mentioned. Can you shortly describe or mention some of them? For example, key challenges you see today in Taiwan.
Okay. Can I share? I make it. I have to make it.
Possibility with slide because you are.
Okay, I have make it. Okay. Show you this one. Okay. I list some major problems in Taiwan. First one is high pressure for students because it's very competitive to study in Taiwan. So students spend long hours at school studying. Then most of the students after the school they have to go to some cram school for study more. So it takes so much time to learn the school curriculum. So we all know, including the parents and the official, this kind of pressure is not a good sign for students. The students should be more diversified in learning. They can just study a textbook, and they can do exercise. They can leisure activity, social activity. So we want to expand their learning curriculum. So we all agree that we want to reduce the pressure for students to learning. So in the last 20 years, okay, the government continue to find some solution but actually there are some wrong solutions. For example, high school students, they are study very hard to get higher education. They can get into the college. So, but that's very competitive to enter college. So the Ministry of Education made a decision. They want to, everyone want to study for a bachelor degree. So we just establish more college, more universities. So everyone can easily to study at a college. Okay, it sounds great, right? So we have increased the number of colleges, so everyone can go to the college. But actually, that's not the case, because students want to study at a good university. They don't want to study at a bad university. So students still, they study hard. They're still very competitive to enter a good university. So there's no problem. Then the result is we have an overexpansion of higher education institute. Yeah, increase so many colleges now. So there are many colleges close. The other problem is there's a labor shortage, because once you have your young people, they all have some bachelor degrees. So they will start to say, oh, I have a bachelor degree. I don't want to do this kind of low-end job. So there's some kind of labor-intensive job that no one want to do. So some such as construction work, some the manufacturing factories, they all need people to work. But the younger generation, they consider they have a bachelor degree, so they don't want to do this kind of low-end job. So we have to invite, or we say recruit many immigrant workers from Southeast Asia to work in Taiwan. There's another problem. The other problem is, we used to have one college entrance examination. So you want the last year of the senior high school, they have to take an examination. There's the national examination. So according your scores, so you will be decided which college you will go to. But people consider this college too much for students. They have to study very hard for this entrance examination. So why we don't make this kind of the evaluation more diversified? So we instead of only this kind of scores, the Ministry of Education decide to include everything, including we have some examination, we have some kind of we have some interviews, we have you have some proof of your extracurricular or your performance during your high school years. Okay, so the examination score is not the only evidence that you need to enter a good university. It seems very good, but now there's create more pressure for high school students, because they have because the student to change into portfolio. Every student have to upload their portfolio on internet. So the university professors will evaluate the high school students' portfolio to decide to give it a score instead of in addition to the examination score. So the student have to prepare all the examination, all their work during the high school years. So they have to start.
Guang, does it mean that, as you mentioned, just to clarify, it means that students should perform exams and plus something additional like portfolio, right?
That's right. In addition to examination, then the plus the portfolio, which
And
including
this portfolio is also evaluated somehow, or
yes.
okay, this is really serious additional work for students.
Yeah, then they including every examination, their scores for their first year or second year high school. So the student have to prepare every examination or quiz during their high school year. So the pressures, the study pressure that is spread, started from the first year in high school.
No any free time.
So the purpose of the original purpose is to reduce the pressure, but now the policy becomes it's not a good solution. The student have to spend more time to prepare for all the quiz, all the tests, and to collect some proof for their extra activity or some their academic some work. For example, you will accept some report during schools. They have to get everything then put into the portfolio.
But it's not only workload for students, but also for teachers, for lecturers.
That's right. So everyone complains. So in the college professors, so we have to review all the applicants' portfolio is online. So we have to check this. We can see a long book of a portfolio.
Is it somehow does it make some, for example, real impact on students' achievements, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think it will show that it will impact students that we want them to be more focused on their daily life, like for exercise, for their some service. So when their artwork, curriculum. So not only for the examinations, but now it's become students become more competitive to each others because the parents, the student will cares about the score for each test or examination. So they will question that all the high school teachers are not fair on schooling, which could influence their chance to enter a good college. Also, we can see students from the wealthy families, they have more resources to attend some learning opportunities. They can attend some special design activity or summer camp, so they can have more proof to demonstrate they have some kind more skillful or some extra skills, so they can put in the portfolio.
Okay, it's so interesting. Let's but for example, I also found some mentioned problems or some certain problems mentioned in relation to Taiwan, that, for example, shortage of teachers, lack of buildings and equipments. Do you agree with this? I see here one of the problem is mentioned all the teachers, so pension reform, but also shortage of teachers. Can you shortly?
Oh, okay. Okay, let me show you some kind of let me show you this animation. Let's show you.
Yeah, everything is prepared.
Okay.
It's good. I like this approach. It's visible, it's detailed, and it's better for discussion, obviously.
Okay, you can see this animation. Okay.
Yeah.
This is the age range of the elementary school teachers. Okay, this is less than 30 years old, and 30 to 44, 35, and this is more than 50 years old. Okay, you can look at this is the last 20 years. Let me stop here. 20 years ago, we have some young teachers here. Okay, we have only few old teachers, but now you can see that they increase in the last a lot.
Yeah, it's really.
Okay, now in the this year that we have more old teachers here than we have much less young teachers. The problem is actually you have a pension reform. In Taiwan, let me show you another. Okay, another.
I just during your searching now information, it's somehow the same trend in Lithuania too, not only in Lithuania. We have older and older teacher, let's say, teacher population, teacher community at schools.
In Taiwan, because the teachers used to have a low salary, but the government increased the salary pretty high. So during that time, they've had some very good pension. So if you about 50 years old, when you retire, you can get probably 75% or 80% of salary. So during that time,
I do remember this during our previous discussion.
Yeah.
But it's so good condition, so
Yeah.
good. To be retired earlier.
Yeah. So you don't work, you can get 80% of the salary. So but the government decided to reform, to change the policy. So they have a much less pension now since 10 years ago. So all the teacher, they don't want to retire because actually they will just income will dramatically decrease. So they still teach, but once they're still in the position, then there's no position for the young teachers. So now they're very, very competitive to become a teacher, school teacher in Taiwan, from elementary school to high school. Even in the university, there's very, very competitive. So there's another, you can see another similar to same in the university. This is a university, so we still all professors are dramatically increasing. So you can see the university professors less than 35 years old. They're very limited. Most old professors. Yeah, it's similar problem here. So once you don't have new young professors come in, it's not easy to make some change at your schools. Yeah, that's another problem.
Okay, and let's go further, because there are a lot of questions and it's not possible to discuss everything. We just want to keep our format for more, let's say, general picture, but possible next time we will focus our discussion on some particular issue or some particular topic. But for example, I have read again that another serious problem is challenge of digital education and equality in Taiwan. And my question is how to bridge the digital, or the main question remains how to bridge the digital divide in order to achieve digital equality in society. And it would be nice also to hear your comments on this issue. Sorry, it's not the picture that my questions are negative somehow, but I need to provoke a little bit.
I think that the digital education at school is quite good. The government invests so much money on computer education. So, for example, the government just announced a new project that every student could, from elementary school to high school, will be given pad computer for learning at school. So they try to use we call it mobile learning. So teachers will teach when every student with a tablet PC on him. So they but there's another problem is the teachers training. The government can give a lot of equipment. Okay, so but teachers don't know how to teach with the tablet PC with student. So most students now they use the tablet PC for gaming. So they don't use for education purpose. Instead, they use to surf on the internet or see videos or play games. So we need more teachers training to integrate this kind of mobile devices with teaching. So that's another problem. Okay, but of course there's always a gap between the younger generation and the older generation. Okay, for the older people, they use this kind of mobile device.
I do agree that this is more or less common thing, because in many countries we see the same situation as a gap between younger generation and for example older one, like teachers or lecturers at universities. But having in mind that Taiwan is really well developed in ICT in general, in technology, it's a little bit strange somehow. That it's like a problem. It's described as like a problem. And okay, let's we discussed already, and you mentioned about some problems. For example, so frequent testing, or at this called always testing in Taiwan. lack of free time of students. And I remember our previous discussions many times that, for example, students after having in mind compulsory education level, that students after regular school hours, after a short period of time, they are going to another school for formal or non-formal education institutions, again up to late evening time, and really a lack of free time, it's one of the main concerns in Taiwan. But I found this quite like general thesis, like general statement that Taiwan's education culture is harmful for most students. What does it mean?
I don't say it's harmful, but I think it's quite. I think it's competition. The schools, they always compete with others. So you can, some high schools say, okay, this year we have the number of students can go to the top universities. So for middle school, okay, so we have most students go to the good high school. So even the same class, although the government now they're prohibited to announce the ranking, but we used to rank every student from the top to the bottom. So you know your child, the parents will know your child's performance in the position of the whole class. Now, so this kind of competition between students, between schools, it cannot. I mean, it still continues. So, although this new in 2 years ago we have a new curriculum reform. Every 10 years we have a new curriculum reform. In this new reform, we focus on we call it cooperation, or we call it co-evolution. The new curriculum emphasizes we want students can work together and then they can become better together. So instead of competition, they can help students and cooperation. That's the new direction. But I wonder if it can become possible. But actually, it's in the policy, it's a good policy. But at a practical level, I don't know if the student can become more collaborative, so can they help each other instead of compete with each other. Yeah.
What would be nice, just you mentioned, and I remember that, for example, in Lithuania, for some years ago, we introduced like official concept, so-called good school concept. And you also mentioned shortly about good school. Can you give some more details? What does a good school means in Taiwan?
There always a ranking of universities and a ranking of the high school. Okay, a ranking, but it's not an official ranking. I think it's the people, the parents will always have some kind of a list. Okay, there's some index. They're ranking some good universities. Okay, so in Taiwan, for the higher education, most of the top university, they are national university. Okay, so we have so the parents or the student will choose according to kind of ranking. Even with the high school, they still will choose some academic traditional academic high school. then later they will choose the vocational high school. Okay. So there's actually there's not an official ranking, but the people will still make a ranking.
Yeah. Okay. And also we have in Lithuania some rank system or ranking, not official, let's say fully official, but this is every year. Different issues are related to ranking system. And my next question is quite important, at least, and interesting at the same time, not only from my perspective, but possible for everybody, because in Lithuania it's related to higher education institutions, because in Lithuania for some years ago, Lithuania started a new so-called reform, which meaning was to reduce number of universities. You know that Lithuania, despite as I mentioned before, bigger territory in comparison with your country, but we have obviously less population, not full 3 million right now, and it were 15 or 16 universities, and the idea was to reduce number of universities and to make universities bigger. With the main idea that bigger universities are better with better quality, etc. And the last example is that our previous, you know very well, because you visited many times, our previously independent Šiauliai University cancelled, and it was matched together with Vilnius University, and currently we are Šiauliai Academy of Vilnius University. But as far as I know, in Taiwan, in your country, is over expansion of higher education institutions. I do understand that it's for your population, it's really important, but anyway, can you comment?
Okay. There's many some 2 years college they're promoted to university, but the quality of the actual college are not good enough. So the student can they choose the traditional academic universities. So there's this kind of there are more and more the college will close. The government, the Minister of Education has no rights toward this university because they are quite independent. So years ago, the Minister of Education tried to merge many universities like Šiauliai and Vilnius University, but not many universities agree. Okay. So they are quite autonomous. So they cannot do anything. So they only. He said that the market decide the situation. Those students, the university recruit bad poorly will disappear.
And as far as I know, it's also your personal experience in your family that your daughters currently are studying in the United States. And my question in relation to that, is it popular to go abroad, to study abroad for Taiwanese?
Yeah, compare with 15 or 10 years ago, and during that time we don't have many good virtual program. So many university graduates they will study abroad, mostly in the United States or mostly in the United States. Okay. So, and during that time, then the United States university will offer generous scholarship. So many of the student will get financial support for studying in the United States. But in the last 15 years, Taiwan become rich, so they give the scholarship to students from China. Now, most of the Chinese students from China will get scholarship for studying in the United States. And so, not many students want to study abroad now because the other reason is that there's many IT company in Taiwan. They need some R&D talents, so they encourage students they can enter the company. They get a really good high salary. So now student major in technology will work in Taiwan. They don't prefer to study for graduate degree. Okay, that's the situation.
But is it okay? It's quite popular to study abroad, mainly in the United States. And what about Japan? Because it's in comparison, for example, what students prefer to go to United States or to go for study in Japan, or it's not?
Because the language problem. The English is our major foreign language. We need to study English since the third grade, elementary school. Okay, so from the elementary school to university, most students study English for at least 15 years. So they have at least some their language ability is good enough. But Japanese language is not official language at schools. So only a few students learn Japanese during their high school, just for a few years. So some students will go to the language school in Japan to study language first for 1 or 2 years before they enter the degree program.
Okay, it's really interesting. And my next question, we already somehow discussed this context because Taiwanese society obviously it has been heavily influenced by Confucian values, and this is quite understandable. And Taiwan society is still under the influence of this tradition, and it requires a great deal of hard work, as we mentioned, by drills and practices, and as a consequence, schools in Taiwan prioritize its priority for schools persistence, effort, rigidity, and which requires obviously more time for studying. Is it correct?
Okay, it's correct. Then also the family will spend money to support students learning. Okay, it costs a lot of money. Similar to and in South Korea, South Korea is also influenced by the Confucianism. So their family will get loan to support their child's learning. So yeah, in Taiwan, that's true. So we want students our children to have some kind of good education opportunities, which is we consider is good for their career future. So we want to encourage them to study hard. Then we also need to support them.
I just remembered for some years ago. Remember you visited our city, our university with some students, and it was like a short practice for them. A small group of students, remember, and after 2 or 3 days, you returned back to Taiwan, and I was like a local supervisor for such students. And they said, okay, let's go enjoy something in Šiauliai to have good time, etc. But students said, no, we should work. We should work. I said, okay, but your professor is not here. And I am not going to say to him, let's go for some social performances, etc. And students rejected this.
Yeah, they are hardworking students. They are good students. Yeah, most of my students are very hardworking and responsible for their job. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, and in regard to this, because, for example, in Lithuania, and possible not in Lithuania, because I recently returned back last week, not last week, really last week. It was the biggest symposium, one of the biggest symposium related to science and technology education, IST 20th symposium in Recife in Brazil. And I just on Sunday returned back from Brazil, and we also discussed with some colleagues and in Recife, and not only, just in many presentations. Let's say the red message. One of the red message was low motivation of students. Doesn't matter at universities or in secondary school level, and having in mind traditions in Taiwan and teaching and learning practice. What is related about with motivation of students, because they need to work hard. It's high pressure on them, lack of free time. They are overloaded with everything, etc., etc. What about motivation?
Okay, you mentioned a question, interesting phenomenon in Taiwan. You know that there's a PISA, okay, a test, okay. Then the Taiwanese student performed pretty well in the math and science category, okay. But the analysis indicate that there's a quite unique phenomenon regarding Taiwanese students. Those students have a good math performance. Their motivation is high. Say, okay, I like math. Okay, I like science. But in Taiwan, those students are not good at math or science. They don't like science or math. But for the student they're good at science and math, they also don't like science and math. Okay, if you do well, you will like science, but I do well, but I don't like science or I don't like math. But why? Because I want to win. I want to do well in the test. So there's just the motivation is to get a good grade. Okay, so they will then also the parents, they will encourage the to do well. So they'll pay for the tutors to teach, or they'll send into the Korean school. The student will want to make it. They want to learn. They want to do well in the math. Although I don't like this kind of subject.
Yeah, and possible you remember also our previous discussions. For example, in Lithuania, also currently in this year, because in June our students passed state math exam after secondary school, and for example, results related to math exam were not so good. I am not going into details, but really it's biggest concern now, not only officially for Ministry of Education and Science, but also for everybody involved in this process. And currently, okay, now it's holiday time in Lithuania, but anyway, discussions continue about so poor results in math exam. And also students in general, if we are speaking about higher education, about university studies, science study programs are not so popular. Also technology study programs are not so popular, and this is quite problematic area, at least for us. Okay, let's turn to our next part of questions or issues which are so important, because somehow you represent the field of science education, obviously science and technology education, and at least your interests are directly connected with geography education, as far as I know. And it would be really interesting to know more about how you assess the state of science education in Taiwan, if possible.
In United States or other countries, they need a lot of some talents of science and engineering, and the pay is quite high. It's much better than science teachers. So, but in Taiwan, the science, the engineers in the industries, actually they pay, the salary is quite high, but there's pressures then it's also very high. Okay, but the people here, they still want to become a science teacher or technology teachers, even though the salary is not as high as the industry. So we have very good science teachers at high school. So I know many of them. They are very responsible. They still they are the good teachers and willing to make effort to teach students science and technology. So that's why the education of science or technology is quite good in Taiwan.
Okay, and but just because it's I think directly related to your research interest and to your experience about technology enhanced learning, because it's one of your main areas of interest. And what is the meaning of that? Can you share with your position, technology enhanced learning? This is somehow.
Okay. Now that we use for for teachers to give the lectures to students to listen, but now that we call it flipped classroom. So instead of the unidirection lectures, we encourage teachers to use this classroom for communication or some collaborative activities. So for some kind of one direction lectures, students can see the video or learn online. So we encourage teachers can use this kind of technology to students can learn outside the classroom time. in the classroom, so they can have more interactive learning. So that's why I say that the technology can enhance and promote the quality of education.
But on the other hand, some just generally speaking, for example, after this pandemic time, strong pandemic time at some extent, because somehow this COVID-19 problem continues. It's not finished yet in full, at least. And then, for example, I mentioned last week in Brazil, it's not officially obligatory, but we need to take masks, to wear masks, for example, etc. And in Lithuania, for example, we're also observing some increased cases related to COVID-19 or different varieties of that. But some teachers argue that, for example, distance teaching, distance learning, it's really difficult, it's really complex, and that technology is not able to solve everything, that etc., etc. Can you give your opinion? What do you think on that?
Yeah, I agree that the technology cannot replace teachers, so we don't consider that all the subject will be appropriate to conduct it in digital form. For some subject, for some activity, technology can have this advantage. But for most the learning activity, I think we still rely on interactive communications. For example, you had the social interaction, so we have some kind of direct instruction or some practice. So I think that's quite important. So we don't. Well, I don't consider we can replace most the learning activity with technology. Yeah, just only for some part of this kind of activity we can replace with technology.
I do agree, because, for example, currently, personally, I am working on some research related to online education, mainly at university level, and with colleagues from Romania and from other countries. We performed different studies, for example, involving bachelor students and also master students, or graduate and postgraduate students. And despite some generally positive evaluation of distance lectures, distance studies, we found many disadvantages, many negative points, etc. And we continue this work, and not only our group. Currently, let's say a large amount of different studies in every country worldwide related to COVID-19, to pandemic time, to education in general during pandemic time, and a lot of papers, a lot of research, different formats, different scope, etc. And possibly because I remember my last visit at the end of 2019 in Taiwan. It was a conference related to science and technology education at some extent. What about STEM education? Because this is my latest impression taking part in IOST in Brazil, as I mentioned before. In Brazil, STEM education is not so common. I'm not going to say popular, but I asked some colleagues, and during discussions, it's so new in general for Brazil. For Brazil, what about Taiwan?
Okay, I'll show you a PowerPoint here. Okay, this you can see that university majors. This blue part are the humanities majors, and these yellow parts are the social science. Then this purple part are the science and technology majors. So for universities, that although the number of students are decreasing, but for the percentage, the science and technology major are almost close to the half of the majors. So because in Taiwan, the IT or some science industry are the major advantage industry. So student will have a good job opportunities and good salary after they graduate from the university. So most of them want to major in science engineering in the university. So it's quite competitive to enter these kind of majors. So students have to do well during their high school. Okay, so they have to major many. They have to take so many science courses or engineering courses during their high school. So actually, the science teacher and technology teacher will work very hard to teach students. So the STEM education I think is quite well from the high school to the university. Okay.
It's yeah, I do agree, but this is somehow new focus. When we're talking about STEM or STEAM education, but from my point of view, it's a little bit like a fashion thing or modern thing, because in reality this is integrated education, because my PhD thesis I defended in 1998. It was connected with integrated science teaching and learning, and it's this tendency or trend was quite popular in the second part of last century. And STEAM, it's not generally it's not new approach. This is just integrating some fields. It's one of integrated education model, I would say. Okay, and currently we are approaching to our last part of our discussion, traditional discussion. We already mentioned at some extent, but anyway, about teacher education. It's really important, possibly the most important area. And currently in Lithuania, we speak a lot about so-called new generation of teachers, that we need some professionals, highly competent teachers, researcher, etc. And for example, in Lithuania a few years ago, we introduced so-called national idea that teaching should be the most prestigious profession in near future, at least in up to 2025. the most prestigious. It's national idea. And we mentioned, for example, shortly, and we know a lot, for example, about prestige of teaching profession in some countries like South Korea, possible Taiwan, some countries in Scandinavian countries, for example, in Europe. But in some other countries, obviously not. It's different situation. And what do you think on this concept? What does it mean, new generation of teachers?
Yeah, I think traditionally, like the Confucian countries, like Taiwan or South Korea, the teachers, is a prestigious profession. Okay, so we have a very good social status. Yeah, and now it's still the same. Then in the past 10 years, it's very competitive to become a teachers. Then the government, they put many measures to evaluate the teacher preparation programs. So if the university's teacher preparation program is not good enough, they will cancel the program. So every 3 or 4 years, the teacher education program will be evaluated. So it's quite strict to control the quality of the teacher preparation, teacher education. So students still have to study very hard because they have to take course during the university. They have to take examination. Only 60% of students can pass the examination every year. So then have to have a half-year practical training. Then they have to try to apply for a job. So it's quite competitive. So only teacher with persistence than with the abilities can become a full-time teachers now in Taiwan.
And how would you rate prestige of teaching profession in comparison with other professions, for example, generally speaking?
I think that the social status and economic status, actually, if they have some good salary and good benefit, okay, it's practical. If this profession has some good benefit and salary, then they can recruit good people.
We discussed, but just in more details about teacher needs, teachers shortage in Taiwan. What is the situation? For example, in Lithuania, somehow we observe lack of teachers for some subjects in particular, for example.
Actually, we don't. There are so many people want to become a teacher. Okay, then in the school we can see that there are many, we call it power teachers. There are many teachers that they like to share their idea with their colleagues. Though they have some kind of society for professional learning. So actually, I attend several activity of this kind of communities. This, for example, for biology teachers, they will get together to discuss how to teach some kind of biological concept to students. So they really discuss this kind of teaching problem. Some of them they put their teaching plans on internet. So again, for school teachers, they want to get some, we call it identity, or some respect from their peer teachers. So that's a, but for some teacher that you cannot change them. But for these some, particularly young science teachers, some tutors, they are willing to devote themselves into teaching. So so I think there's the pity that we don't have many position for the young new teachers. Otherwise, it will change a lot, because I see many young and some energetic teachers willing to teach. Yeah.
Mhm. And just also, because it's interesting, despite that this is possible detailed information, what is duration? How long you need to prepare teachers, for example? 4 years or 5 years?
Oh, okay. I have this.
I'm pretty sure that you are prepared well for our discussion with different material.
Okay. Here. Okay. I can show you this one. That. Okay. This is a teacher program. Okay. Then we have at least 2 years, because they have at least 2 years. It depends your major. If you are science teachers, you have to have a major in science training. Okay. Then if you are, for example, you are English teachers, you have some a major in English. So there's the, but for the teacher program, this extra program, you have to take about 10 more education courses for 2 years. Then after this, they have to take a national examination. They will test all the education theories, philosophy, and some kind of teaching strategies. So about 50 to 60% this graduate can get a certificate. Then have having.
I should interrupt. Just to clarify, teacher program, it means study program at university, right?
Yes, that's right.
And the 50% pass rate, does it mean that only half of students finishing successfully?
No, they can just graduate from this kind of teacher program, but they have to take an examination before they get a teacher certificate. There's graduate from this program
Does
that.
it mean that, for example, I am finished my studies at university,
Yes.
teacher study program, but I
Yes.
am not teacher yet.
No, you
I
are
need
not yet. You have to take the examination to get a certificate before you can teach.
and
Become a teacher.
what are main requirements, or what are requirements for such a certificate?
This certificate including the half years practical training, and then you have the successful grade. Then you have to take examination. It's a national examination. So everyone has to take the examination. No, but only these graduates can take this examination, but only 50% of the graduate can pass, so they are able to get a certificate. The other 50 have to take the examination next year.
Oh, it's quite strong system.
That's right. That's quite challenging.
For example, in my imagination, not in Lithuanian experience, for example, I finished my study at university. I received at least bachelor degree, and I can go to school to get a position and to work.
No. You have to get a certificate first to become a qualified teacher. Then later you can apply for a job. But if you don't pass the examination, you cannot get a teacher certificate. Also, the Ministry of Education will evaluate your teacher program. For example, your university, the graduate university, most of them don't pass the examination, which means the quality of your teacher program pretty bad. So your university doesn't train a qualified teacher. So probably next year they will just reduce the number of teacher programs. Yes, quite strong, quite strict.
And for example, about master degree. For example, some students obviously receiving bachelor degree after you studies at university, and some of them possible master degree. If you would compare, for example, if he or she has a master degree, is it easier to get a job at school?
Yes, it's a little bit easier, but then the job salary is a little bit higher. So I think they encourage the teacher to obtain the this one.
It's okay. I went to
okay. Yeah, this is the master degree. Teacher with master degree. This is teacher with bachelor degree. This is for doctor degree. So you can see there are more teacher with where more teacher will have a master degree.
Yeah. And is it some difference in salary, for example, if you have master degree in comparison with bachelor one?
Yes. So most of the teachers will have we call it in job training. We offer some master degree during weekends or during at night. So or during summertime. So these teachers can study for master degree outside the school time. So they can have a full-time job and they can have their master's degree after 3 or 4 years of study, part-time studies.
And okay, let's imagine if just my understanding. I'm graduated, for example, I finished my teacher study program at university. After some, as I understood, after some practice or some additional work, I received a certificate, teacher certificate, and let's say I started to work at school. What is next? Is it final duty till my retirement, till my pension?
Okay.
Or I need somehow professional development, etc.
Actually, there's one way that some teachers will go to the administrative position. For example, they can eventually become the principal. Yeah. But most of the teachers, they just teach them.
Okay, principal, it's this is managerial managerial role, but among teachers community, for example, in Lithuania, not only in Lithuania we have something like ranking system or qualification system. For example, starting from, I would say, junior teacher or teacher up to senior teacher, and finally up to teacher expert. Some ranks exist, and somehow like internal career for teacher. For example, I am just a teacher, simple teacher. After some work experience, after some, I need to take part in different seminars, in different courses, different activities related to my professional growth. Some obviously some criteria exists, etc. And after that, I can receive my next position, for example, senior teacher, or we call next one teacher methodologist, and final, the highest rank is teacher expert.
Okay, yeah, the government years ago tried to accept this kind of the system, but they failed because the teachers they are against this kind of evaluation system. They claim that teaching cannot be judged, cannot be evaluated. So you cannot evaluate I'm a better teacher than the other one. So almost all the teachers that protest for including this kind of the system. So now only university professors, teachers can be evaluated. The high school to elementary school teacher, they cannot be evaluated. So no, there's no this kind of system.
It's does it mean like equality among teachers?
Yeah, there's based on your value, and there's not, you cannot label this is you cannot put categories teachers. Yeah, everyone is the same. Okay.
And just for interest, there's salary, teacher salary depends on pedagogical practice, on experience. For example, if you are working 5 years, 10 years or more.
Yeah, it depends on your education. If you get a master's degree, you can jump a little bit. Then they will increase year by years. Everyone's the same. So you don't, if you devote yourself, you work very hard, you just get compare with other teachers, you have the same salary. Depends on the years. Every year you get a small increase of the salary.
And how do the teachers improve their qualification in Taiwan?
The government provides service training. Actually, from elementary school to high school, every Wednesday afternoon, there's they call it the in-service training. So the school or the teacher themselves, they have to attend some kind of professional development activities. The school, for example, the school will invite a professor or some expert to give lectures or say some kind of workshop. So for the teacher at school, or some teacher can to register for the workshop outside the school, so they can attend this kind of professional development workshop. Or teacher can study for a master's degree. During this kind of afternoon. So officially there's a Wednesday afternoon is there's no course. Then teacher will to do some training.
And what about links or connections or cooperation among schools and universities, for example? That school, schools have, for example, some contacts with universities, or it's not common? For example, how universities are going to help or helping to schools or to teachers, for teachers?
Yeah, there are some kind of project that we have. If we have some kind of funding from the Ministry of Education, we have a project to working with the school teachers. For example, we're going to promote some kind of mobile learning project. We want to develop some kind of teaching model with tablet PCs. So the professor will get funding from the Ministry of Education, then we work together with the school teachers. Also, yeah, there's some school teacher can apply funding from the government, so they can work together with the professors. Yeah.
And just also for interest, because, for example, in our context, in Lithuanian context, currently it's so common and that schools should cooperate closely with families, with parents, with students, parents, with families, and sometimes, obviously, in general, it's obviously good. It's because it's common work, common responsibility, having in mind education, etc. But at some extent, parents influencing schools in general and teachers in particular, for example, with some recommendations, some, let's say, regulations, for example, how to teach, how not to teach, etc. And obviously, at some extent, it's not correct. What is panorama or context in your country?
For young students, for example, the elementary school students or the high school student, middle school student. Yeah, for the young students, the teacher will contact the parents almost every day. We have some journals, so the parents need to see every day and sign. So for elementary schools and middle school, but for the high school and university, normally we don't contact the parents. Yes, but for young student, yeah. But there's another problem that we in university we call it's like a teacher-parent relationship course. We train our pre-service teachers to how to maintain a good relationship with students' parents. That's quite important. Otherwise, if the parents don't trust you, then they will give a lot of comments or some suggestion on your teaching. Yeah, then if you have a very good relation with these parents, many parents will donate for the class activities. Yeah, so then volunteer to help the teaching during the school activities.
Well, it's okay. It's quite obviously quite interesting. And my possible next question, we're approaching to end, but anyway, it's interesting. Possibly in every country exists some called elite education. And I have read that in Taiwan there are some so-called beacon schools or or possible charter schools, etc., which are a form of elite education that keeps students with high academic qualifications. And not every student obviously is suitable for attending so-called beacon schools. Can you also give some comments on this issue?
Okay, from elementary school to middle school, majority of students attend the public schools. Okay, for preschools, for kindergartens, 80% of the kindergartens are private schools. Okay, so there are some this kind of private school from kindergarten to high school. They're very limited. Not many of them, because the tuition is very high. So only the people with from the wealthy family can afford this kind of tuition. So for this some early school, high schools, most of them they will study abroad after they graduate from high school. Yeah, they will probably study further United States or Europe. Yeah, so that's not quite common in Taiwan. Only, majority of the students attend the public schools.
And just talking about universities, because we already mentioned this, if you would compare, for example, public sector and private one, because I remember I visited, possible during my first visit to Taiwan, I visited one private university and we had conference there. If I remember well, Providence
Yes,
University.
yes.
And if we would compare private and public universities, what are the main differences?
Actually, in Taiwan, the tuition is controlled by the Ministry of Education. Even with the private university, they cannot increase their tuition a lot. So the government set up decide the tuition. The private university's tuition probably double the public. So for the private university, they cannot increase the tuition, so they cannot do much. Okay, so there's sometimes they can apply some support from the government, so they are not allowed to increase the tuition. So actually, they cannot change too much.
Oh, it's really interesting. A lot of interesting issues, but our time is it's our biggest enemy at the same because it's going quite fast. My possible last question, or a little bit rhetoric question: the teaching profession, is it vocation or is it vocation a myth or not? Is it something special or just this regular profession?
Okay, I consider teaching position is a special profession because there's not obvious PKI, so there's a value in every teachers. You get the same salary, but you can become a very devoted teacher. You can put your time on teaching. You can share your enthusiasm with your students, but you can also be relaxed. You don't want to prepare for your teaching. So there's the evaluations inside everyone's heart. So yeah, it's a special profession.
Possible, yes. I totally agree with you. And okay, I have obviously more questions, but again, time is approaching to end because we agreed on some duration for this discussion. Obviously, in every country exists some problems, some challenges, some good things, obviously, and I hope that we will have some possibilities to discuss maybe in person or to meet online and to discuss on some particular topics which are in our interest. But anyway, I hope that some ideas that you shared with us today are quite interesting, quite useful and important, and possible it encourages some people to know more, to know more about Taiwan, about your country, and it's really interesting and important when we compare, as we mentioned in beginning, that despite some common issues, despite some similarities, we have at the same time we have a lot of differences, a lot of interesting differences, etc. And usually it's really quite important to know. I sincerely thank you for this interesting discussion and expressed ideas, expressed thoughts, and obviously shared time, because time it's so important. I wish you every success personally, both in your academic and personal life, and I also wish all the best for your wonderful country. And I do hope that I will have the possibility to visit Taiwan again in the near future, and because my previous experience during my previous visits are only positive, and I gained a lot of experiences during such visits, etc. And when possible, you want to add something, or possible you want to share some last thoughts related to this discussion?
Likewise, I just thank you for this opportunity. We enjoy your visit in Taiwan. So yeah, we enjoy your company. I think we sometimes we talk about everything in Šiauliai with my wife, my family, about the weather, and yeah, it's quite interesting. I think that's it's not compared good or bad. We just compare something quite different. So I think it's a good opportunity to understand the difference between different countries. Hopefully I can travel abroad soon. Now we are not allowed to travel abroad now. So I have since almost 3 years. I only stay in Taiwan. So I hope you can meet my friends soon, Taiwan or overseas. Okay.
Yeah, let's hope that everything will be all right with all right, and no anymore any pandemic, or at least we will be possible adapted to the situation, and it will be possible to return to the normal regular life in the future. And possible, I hope so, we will meet next year in Šiauliai, because As you know, we are going to organize our next Baltic Sea Symposium 2023, and I really hope that it will be in reality, in face-to-face mode.
Yes,
But
yes, yeah.
not online, because we need to meet people, we need to communicate, and this is at least it's my hope. Next summer in the middle of June, possible we will meet again in Šiauliai. Okay, thank you very much, Huang,
Thank you.
for your time, and have a nice day, and bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Thank you. Okay.